I rise today to pass important legislation in the state of Wyoming. This bill has only to do with Wyoming and no other state. It's H.R. 3415, the Pilot Butte Power Plant Conveyance Act. It allows the United States Bureau of Reclamation to transfer the ownership of a facility to stakeholders in my home state of Wyoming. The Pilot Butte Power Plant is owned by the federal government, but has not been in service since 2008. It closed when it became too costly to operate. So it's been sitting idle there in Wyoming in a small area of 2.5 acres for the past 15 years. It's owned by the United States Bureau of Reclamation, and they are planning to demolish it. To be clear, we are talking about a mothballed hydroelectric structure. It's on about 2 acres of Bureau of Reclamation land. This is essentially 1.5 football fields in size. That's how small of a footprint this is. Well, the Midvale Irrigation District in Pavilion, Wyoming, reached out to the Wyoming congressional delegation, all 3 members of the delegation, saying that they were willing to take ownership of this power plant that has been sitting idle for 15 years and ready to be demolished.
Things just got real on the Senate floor. Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming just dropped the political equivalent of a mic after Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota blocked his bill. The fallout? Barrasso's now promising to kill any bills affecting Minnesota or New Mexico until his legislation gets through. This clash isn't just about politics, it's about land rights, tribal consultation, and how a 2.5-acre hydro plant turned into a nationwide standoff. Let's break it down. H.R. 3415, aka the Pilot Butte Power Plant Conveyance Act, aims to transfer ownership of an old, unused federal hydroelectric facility in Wyoming to a local irrigation district.
Demolished.
The plant hasn't operated since.
Midvale Irrigation proposed this transfer as a solution to provide energy to local users. The local people right there came to us. They said that they will make the needed repairs to bring this power station back into operation. If enacted, the bill will enable the facility to be revived after years and years of neglect and sitting idle. Communities in my home state of Wyoming will once again be able to get electricity from this local source of hydropower. This transfer is the only option to save the facility for future use. Without this bill, the Bureau of Reclamation plans to demolish the facility. As a result, it's going to cost the American taxpayers over $7 million to destroy this property. This bill that I've introduced, sponsored by the entire Wyoming delegation, is a win-win. The American people will no longer own a mothballed facility that's going to cost $7 million to demolish. And the people of Wyoming will be able to put the hydropower plant back into use. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about the consultations and discussions that I have had with community members and stakeholders. I've met directly with both the Eastern Shoshone and the Northern Arapaho tribes regarding this specific bill and the hydropower plant. Since February of this year, my office has been actively engaged in discussions with all parties involved. This summer, my staff visited the facility and met with all of the stakeholders. Everyone wants to see the facility operating again. And I'm confident that the people of Wyoming will properly manage this facility in a way that benefits everyone in the local community. The House of Representatives passed this legislation unanimously back in February. It has the support of the entire Wyoming delegation. And so, Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of H.R. 3415, which was received from the House. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
The plant hasn't operated since 2008. The locals want to revive it to generate power, and Barrasso's bill would stop the government from spending $7 million to demolish it. Sounds simple, right? Enter Senator Tina Smith. She objected, saying there wasn't enough consultation with the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes, despite Barrasso claiming months of outreach. She emphasized the importance of honoring tribal sovereignty and federal trust responsibilities, a valid point, but was it enough to stop the bill? She thought so. Barrasso was not having it. He fired back, pointing out the land isn't tribal, it's owned by the Bureau of Reclamation. And it's just 2.5 acres. He then threw down the gauntlet, promising to oppose any bills affecting Minnesota or New Mexico until his legislation is passed. That includes a New Mexico wilderness bill covering 12,000 acres. Yeah, he made his point loud and clear.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
The junior senator from Minnesota.
Reserving the right to object, I want to say that I understand that Senator Heinrich from New Mexico has concerns about the Pilot Butte Power Plant Conveyance Act, and I share his concerns. The Eastern Shoshone and the Northern Arapaho tribes are rightfully concerned about the lack of official federal government tribal consultation on this proposal, which would directly impact their reservation. And I know that one of our most fundamental responsibilities as a body is to honor our trust and treaty obligations to tribal nations and to uphold that government-to-government relationship. I want to say that I appreciate Senator Barrasso's work with my colleagues on these land bills, and I am not objecting to any others of them. However, I urge that we have the tribal consultation that should be appropriately conducted on this bill, and therefore I object to the passage of H.R. 3415.
Action is heard.
Madam President, this 2.5-acre piece of land owned by the Bureau of Reclamation, not owned by the tribes, not owned by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. This is owned by the Bureau of Reclamation. And it is a title transfer to create an energy source for local stakeholders. This is all about my home state of Wyoming. We're talking 2.5 acres. And I understand the senator from Minnesota is making this objection on her behalf as well as the behalf of the senator from New Mexico. Let me assure the senators from Minnesota and New Mexico that I will be vigilant and watching out for bills that impact at least 2.5 acres in their home states. For example, the senator from New Mexico right now has a bill, Sarah De La Hoya, and it was reported favorably out of the Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee. Madam President, that bill established 12,000 acres, not 2.5 acres, 12,000 acres of wilderness in New Mexico. This bill in my home state, not New Mexico, not Minnesota, Bureau of Reclamation land, 2.5 acres. As I've said, I will be vigilant and watching out for bills that impact at least 2.5 acres in their home states. And I consider their bills now dead until the Pilot Butte issue is resolved. Thank you, Madam President.
This standoff could have real consequences. It sets a new precedent. Block my bill, I'll block yours. It also raises bigger questions about federal land management, tribal consultation, and political payback culture in Washington. And with the Senate often relying on unanimous consent to pass non-controversial bills, one objection can freeze everything. Hey, if you're into breakdowns of power plays like this, where politics meets real-world impact, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a moment. John Barrasso's move wasn't just a political shot, it was a warning. Whether you see it as justified pushback or dangerous obstruction, one thing's clear. The Senate just got a lot more personal. What do you think? Was Tina Smith right to object, or did Barrasso have every reason to push back hard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it.